Ever since Thanos snapped half of life in the universe out of existence, fans have been wondering how the remaining Avengers will be brought back. With time travel expected to be in play for Avengers Endgame, what do our heroes plan to do once they get to the past? One theory is that they plan to take the stones before Thanos can collect them, but what if there's a different plan? What if the Avengers are planning on creating their own Infinity Stones? Ever since Doctor Strange uttered the phrase, "We're in the Endgame now," fans have been parsing clues from the comics, interviews, set photos, and past movies, trying to get a glimpse at what he saw in one of those 14-some million futures. Without giving away too much, Captain Marvel has a particular association with the Space Stone that makes her power as compatible with it as Scarlet Witch's with the Mind Stone. If Scarlet Witch's connection could destroy the stone, maybe Captain Marvel's could create one once they knew enough about it. With the information on two stones, the science bros might even be able to extrapolate the makeup of the remaining stones. Now, the time travel clues have been fairly well documented. The first clues that Earth's mightiest heroes were going back in time came in the form of set photos that showed some of our favorite heroes in past costumes. Namely, one Steve Rogers, who changes looks almost as often as his estranged inventor and teammate Iron Man. Anyway, Cap has been known to wear a throwback jersey now and then as a rallying cry or just out of availability. It's not just the older outfit. The set photos appear to be taken during the Battle of New York, all the way back to the first time our heroes teamed up against Loki and the Chitauri. Of course, that doesn't necessarily mean that time travel is a factor by itself, as there could be flashbacks. But that wouldn't explain the presence of Scott Lang, who didn't even get into the superhero game until Captain America Civil War, which was released after Age of Ultron. Not only that, there are photos of Tony Stark wearing a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent uniform. Before Scott Lang heads into the quantum realm to fetch more quantum particles, the Elder Van Dyne warned Scott that if he gets lost in the time vortexes, they won't be able to save him. Of course, thanks to Thanos' glove-snapping ways, they weren't able to save Scott anyway. Part of the speculation for all of this is that Scott keeps getting spit out of different times and has to work his way to the film's present, but that doesn't explain how Stark ended up in that S.H.I.E.L.D. outfit. That points to there being a plan. Now this is where the popular theory comes in, that they intend to steal the Infinity Stones before Thanos gets them, destroying them, and rendering the snap impossible. After all, the Battle of New York featured not one, but two Infinity Stones. If you're going to do some stealing in the MCU, Scott Lang is your man. But what do you do once you've made your own Infinity Stones? As Wong describes in Infinity War, the original stones are artifacts of the creation of the universe. While they could maybe replicate the structure of the stones, it's possible that they couldn't duplicate the level of power of the full force of the Infinity Gauntlet. However, a duplicate gauntlet in the hands of Captain Marvel might fill the role that Adam Warlock was able to play in the Infinity Gauntlet storyline, where he headed a team of superheroes that guarded the stones from people's ambitions. Another character who's still bopping around is Nebula. In the latest trailer, we even see Gamora's single-minded sibling teaming up with the remaining Avengers. In the Infinity Gauntlet storyline, Nebula actually gets the Infinity Gauntlet from Thanos. Unfortunately, the power goes to her head almost immediately. With either Nebula or Captain Marvel using the power of duplicate stones, they might be able to neutralize at least 5 of the 6 stones, and maybe even crack the Soul Stone, releasing the souls trapped inside it since the snapping, presuming that's where they went. Now let's go back to Doctor Strange for a second. He's no stranger to manipulating the space-time continuum, but there's a hitch that comes with messing with time, and it's a warning that both Wong and Mordo give when the good doctor started doing it. It's a problem that any time traveler faces ultimately. If you change one thing, there are a million of unintended consequences. Even in other Marvel movies not in the MCU, time travel has had a chaotic effect. Once Kitty Pryde started sending people back to the past, wait, she has that power now? I thought she phased through walls. Anyway, the X-Men timeline became so convoluted that you'd need one of those evidence boards to figure it out. If the Mind Stone is destroyed at the Battle of New York, there might not be an Ultron, but that also means no Scarlet Witch or Vision. Without a Sokovia, there might also be no Zemo or Civil War, and T'Challa's father, T'Chaka, might still be alive. Essentially, half of the storylines of phases 2 and 3 don't happen, both good and bad. The Tesseract goes to Asgard after the Battle of New York with Thor and Loki, where it's used to repair the Bifrost, which wouldn't happen without it. This also sets up a series of unforeseen problems. Mordo and Doc Brown could be onto something. Spider-Man was dusted in the snap, so he can't use a movie reference to explain it, but Wong might be available to explain it all. So if they're not there to steal the stones, they have to be there for something else. Vision was able to theorize that his Mind Stone could be destroyed by a Scarlet Witch because her powers come from the stone, and she operated on the unique frequency of it. With the collection of research that the Science Bros did on the Mind Stone to create Ultron and then eventually Vision, they have a pretty good understanding of at least one of the stones. The events of the Battle of New York were the result of Thor's buddy, Dr. Selvig, doing research on the Space Stone. Unfortunately, his work was being done under the direction of the Mind Stone thanks to Loki. Chances are that his notes weren't exactly in official S.H.I.E.L.D. archives. The diminutive Ant-Man and Science Bro Tony Stark might be there to gather that research to create a better understanding of that stone next. This would explain why you'd bring a Science Bro with you and why that Science Bro would be Stark. Even though the ever-loving Hulk appears to be having a snit, refusing to come out, taking someone who has a giant green rage monster hitching a ride when you're trying to be stealthy isn't the best of ideas. Once upon a time, in the comics, there was only the need for one Infinity Gem, the Soul Gem, in the possession of Adam Warlock. Of course, in the MCU, Adam Warlock is still just a post-credit tease. Eventually, we learned of all 6 of the gems when comic book Thanos sets about trying to impress his crush, Lady Death, by killing a lot of things. However, it turns out there are more than 6 stones. Depending on how you look at it, there are 5 other stones. One is the rather grim-sounding Death Stone. This was the creation of Anwin Bacchian, using the Reality Stone during a Secret Wars crossover. She offers this stone to Thanos, who's overpowered by it, turning the Mad Titan to dust. Fitting. The remaining stone is a little more complicated. This goes back to Wong's impromptu planetarium presentation on the creation of the Infinity Stones, having been created as artifacts of the creation of the universe. In Marvel Comics lore, the universe constantly destroys and recreates itself, with various artifacts and leftovers from the previous one emerging. Now, at the center of the stones is a powerful being named Nemesis, who ended herself out of boredom, thus creating the Infinity Gems with a 7th gem, the Ego Gem, containing her consciousness. When the Ego Gem is combined with the other 6, it's able to revive Nemesis. Of course, with a name like Nemesis, she's not exactly the friendliest thing to summon. However, Earth 199999, which we know as the MCU, has made some notable changes from Earth 619, otherwise known as the main Marvel continuity. We know that the stones seem to have a will of their own. The Soul Stone has a rather demanding criteria for it to be acquired, as laid out by the MCU's first stone-happy villain, Red Skull. Vision would talk about the will that the Mind Stone seemed to have, making him wonder if his consciousness was in fact his own or the stones. With the information gathered in the past about the stones, they may be able to form or locate the Ego Stone, making them able to negotiate with the stones for the release of half of life or fight Nemesis for the return, who may in fact end up attacking Thanos as well. This would mean the climax of Endgame would see the Avengers fighting side by side with Thanos. While Nemesis wasn't part of the Infinity Gauntlet story, Thanos having to join the good guys to fight the fallout of his actions is something that did happen when Nebula got a hold of the gauntlet and then started wrecking things. So teaming up isn't entirely unheard of. Are we ready to root for Thanos? Time will tell. Alright, here's the simpler explanation, but it has Captain Marvel spoilers, so be warned. Are you ready? Alright, let's get into it. We warned you. Carol Danvers gets her power when Mar-Vell's Tesseract-powered engine is destroyed. Mar-Vell was building that engine to lead the refugee Skrulls to safety, which eventually becomes something that Captain Marvel herself has to do. But even with her Space Stone powers, it still takes her a while to make it back to Earth, not unlike Thanos and his portal opening ways. The explanation might be as simple as the Science Bros needing Selvig's notes on how to tap into the Tesseract so Captain Marvel can use that kind of power. In order for this to matter, of course, it'd mean that Thanos' location is inaccessible to the Bifrost that can be summoned through Stormbreaker. There's precedent for that, as Heimdall seemed to be unable to see Thanos until he was on top of the Asgardians. If Heimdall's Allsight can't see Thanos, the Bifrost might not be able to open there. Or since Thor doesn't have Allsight, he might only be capable of going to places he knows. That explanation might end up being a little anticlimactic, but the Tesseract has held a special place in the MCU, being at the center of 3 different movies now. Having it being the key to undoing the damage of the snap might bring it full circle. That's how the Avengers may create one or more of their own Infinity Stones. Which one do you think is more likely? What's your theory about their plan? Let us know in the comments, and then make sure to hit that subscription button to stay up to date with the latest CBR videos. Oh, and of course, thanks for watching.